society to feel a strong commitment to struggling against it and to deepen their practice around how to do that, how to do anti-racist work and social change work. So, and then this is a study and struggle event, which means we are creating a space for people to come together and reflect on action so that we can all take that into the different social change work that we do, reflect and learn lessons from each other. So we've created a space and we have some really great people who are going to be speaking today. So first we're going to start with a video that Steph put together, who is Catalyst Volunteer Coordinator, and she helped do a lot of this event, so let's give Steph a round of applause. And Steph even baked some cupcakes and things in the bag that have an AZ with a cross out on them. So detail-oriented for you all. And so we're going to watch the video, and it's kind of going to give you a bigger context around SB 1070, what was going on in Arizona. And then we're going to hear from the panelists. And first we're going to hear from Marisa with Right to the City. And Marisa has been down in Arizona. Is from Arizona and has gone back down there to really help build up the movement, especially in Phoenix, around fighting against SB 1070, 287G, anti-immigrant legislation that's going down, and build up the strength of the local community to fight for stronger immigrant rights and human rights. And then we're going to hear from Ari Clemenzi, who is with the Catalyst Project, who's going to share some lessons that Ari learned while she was there, and lessons that we learned as Catalyst while we were there. And then we're going to hear from Linda, who's somewhere in the room, oh right there, who's going to be sharing some lessons from working with the U.S. for All of Us, and particularly looking at engaging the Unitarians and and supporting a primarily white religious community really throwing down in Arizona for immigrant rights. And then we're going to hear from Chris Crass, who is also with the Catalyst Project, who is going to be sharing some lessons, particularly looking at direct action movements over the past 10 years and lessons that we can learn from what happened in Arizona around direct action. And then we're going to hear from Andrea Cristina, who's with Mujeres Unidas y Activas, and she is going to share some, connecting it back to what's the connection locally here around immigrant rights in the Bay Area, and then also be sharing lessons from the gathering that happened in New Orleans around building the immigrant rights movement. And I think Marisa will jump in on that part too. So, and then there'll be a chance for you all to ask questions, share your thoughts. So that's what we have in store. It's going to be a very full program. Are you all ready? Yes. Okay, so for the video, thank you.
Someone keep the time? Yeah. Whatever you want, just tell me when that's okay. So my name is Marisa Franco. I want to start by thanking the Catalyst Project for putting this event together, and also for their work on the campaign this summer. It feels very good to be here. San Francisco is a type of home for me, and so is Arizona. I'm on staff for the Right to the City Alliance, which is a network of over 30 urban-based community groups fighting initially around gentrification, but has come together around notions of racial, economic, climate, and gender justice. And I was in New York City, and every so often, very often, I go home to Phoenix, Arizona, where I'm from. And over the years, I've become very aware and very agitated by the growing crisis, the human rights crisis. And so I was expecting the call at some point, and I was very excited when I got the call to come after Brewer signed SB 1070 into law. And so I spent the summer there on the ground working with the sisters and brothers trying to resist SB 1070, and just left about a week ago. And so I'm going to be sharing a little bit about the strategies and what it was that what were the strategies this summer, how did it play out, and what are some basic lessons that I took from the experience which I learned a tremendous amount from. I guess I would start by saying that the overall goal of this fight was to beat back SB 1070 in the courts, in the community, on the streets, and to spark a resistance movement that would demand legalization and dignity from the bottom up. That we were fundamentally providing or creating an alternative road outside of Washington, D.C., where the plight and the destiny and the fate of more than 12 million people and their families has become political football. And in Phoenix, Arizona, in the state of Arizona overall, that political football is costing lives, it's costing futures, it's costing a lot of pain and suffering. And so that's what we wanted to accomplish. Very simple task over the summer. And so I'll start basically after the 29th. There was a consulta process where there was 5 strategies that were identified of how will we resist SB 1070. We had 90 days from the point in which Brewer signed the bill into law to the point in which it would be implemented to do something to make it stop, to slow it down, to detain it, to destroy it, any adjective you want to give it. And so there's 5 strategies. One was to form barrio defense committees and do intense education in the community to get people prepared and ready to deal with the implementation of 1070 and to also resist the numerous laws that have been passed over the last 10 years. Since 2005, over 6,000 bills have been introduced in the state legislature. That's more than a bill a day. So Arizona has some of the highest foreclosure rates, has some of the highest unemployment rates. The school system is at the bottom, but yet the thing that these folks want to continue to focus on is how to make immigrants' lives miserable. And so we are not only dealing with SB 1070 in the state of Arizona, we're dealing with the banning of ethnic studies, the banning of sex education, now they're looking to break down affirmative action. They've been tearing it apart, chipping away at it year after year after year. A student who is undocumented who say they came to this country at the age of 3 years old and they're trying to go to school, they will have to pay out-of-state tuition. There's a story of a young sister, Silvia Rodriguez, who right now is at Harvard University. She came to the States when she was 7 years old, and her family, when she was at the university, she had to pay triple tuition. Her family left the state because they couldn't, essentially people have been leaving because of the conditions. And she was left, she basically couch surfed the majority of her college career, applied and got into Harvard School, and had to raise $50,000 to be able to go to school, and has lived in Arizona her whole life. And so students are also being affected. And so these barrio defense committees were really essentially the effort to build a power base that would go for the long term. Second is non-compliance, figuring out ways to undermine this law both on an institutional level and on the street. Third, civic engagement. Fourth, boycott, which is the basic economic pressure, somewhat in the steps of the, I don't know if folks remember years back, Arizona was the last state to approve and recognize the Martin Luther King holiday nationally. They refused to do it, and there was a Super Bowl that was planned in the state of Arizona, and the NFL players boycotted and threatened to not play. And they lost the Super Bowl because of it, and it forced the state to capitulate. The next year they enacted the law. And so in the footsteps of that fight, a boycott was launched against the state. And then clearly, sorry. And then litigation, which was basically countering the law and its constitutionality. And our target fundamentally was Barack Obama, was President Obama. We were calling for federal intervention. We were asserting that Arizona had become, and has become, the new Alabama, that Jan Brewer stood on the side of history of the segregationists, that Joe Arpaio is a modern-day Bull Connor, and that it is the duty of the federal government to intervene in this rogue state.